All right, when you buy a company, do you want to buy the assets or do you want to buy the corporation? And what's the difference? So, when you're buying a business or buying a company, if you buy the corporation, you're buying the stock or you're buying the LLC and you're buying everything that goes along with it, including all of the legal issues that could be out there, potentially looming that you may or may not know about, or things that could pop up in the future from either customers, vendors, or other associates, former employees. You just never know what could pop up. So when you buy the stock or you buy the company, you're buying all of the potential liabilities that go along with it. If you do an asset purchase, then you're just buying the assets. You're buying the furniture, fixtures, equipment, the goodwill, the customer list, the intellectual property, potentially the name, any kind of proprietary recipes, formulas, information that the company has. So it's much cleaner and easier to just buy the assets of the company. It's much more straightforward than it is to purchase the stock or purchase the corporation itself, whether it's a corporation or an LLC, whatever it is. Anything can and will pop up. I had a situation where I had bought a plumbing company one time, and even though I had an indemnification agreement, and I sent letters to all of the vendors of the company letting them know when I sold that plumbing company that I was no longer the guarantor on any of the accounts or anything like that. And I ended up selling the corporation, or I sold the name and all that. I dissolved the corporation, but for whatever reason, that company name continued on, and they had gotten behind on an account. They set up a whole new vendor account, and the company just had an old personal guarantee for me from years and years and years ago. And they came after me, and I had to produce the document showing that I sold the corporation. I had to produce the indemnification agreement, and I also had to produce the letter that I wrote and sent them that I was no longer part of the company. I was no longer the guarantor for the company, and it was a completely different corporation now. And that was a 10-year, I think 10 years had passed. So this is something that popped up 10 years after I sold the company to somebody else. And I didn't even sell the stock. I just sold the name, the business, the customer list, all that. The actual corporation was dissolved, and I was removed as a guarantor from that original corporation before that ever happened. So anything can and will pop up when you buy a company and you buy the stock versus just buying the assets and the intellectual property of the company. So just be careful, make sure that you're dealing with a mergers and acquisitions attorney to advise you so that you understand all of the potential issues. You do a good, thorough search of any potential liens, lawsuits, things like that, but then you can never know what could pop up down the road from a warranty issue, from a liability issue, things like that. So you're much better off just buying the assets, forget about the corporation, and you can move forward much cleaner and easier with less liability in the long run.